It's the MVWF podcast with your hosts, Damian Andrews and Eddie Stang. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Damian Andrews, and this is the MVWF podcast, your pre-show for the upcoming 20th anniversary show for the MVWF. I am Damian Andrews, and I am a thrall of the Shadow King, of course. And my co-host was my recent broadcast partner on the MVWF broadcast of the Royal Rumble, Eddie Stank. Eddie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Damien. How are you today?
I am great. All right, so we're going to run down this card here. On the screen, we can see our main event, a very unique match for the MVWF Tag Team Championship, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's going to be an iconic day.
Well, it's one of those situations we've never had this kind of match before in the MVWF. Of course, all the games have evolved over the years in order to facilitate these types of things. But never before in the MVWF has the World Tag Team Championship been defended in a four-way championship match. Now, just to go over some of the rules on this before we dive into the competitors and all the dynamics between all of them, is that there is a 60-minute time limit on all of this, and with all of those competitors that are going to be competing in this match, the likelihood of a 60-minute time limit draw is very real. But that being said, it is elimination, and should the tag team champions, the Jackson Boys, find themselves in a situation where they get eliminated early, but it goes to a draw later on in the match, they still will retain the World Tag Team Championship. So it is on the challengers, all three teams, to get this done. What do you think of the likelihood of a result here?
I think we're going to have a draw. I personally think with the competitors you have in this event that we're going to have, it's not going to get resolved.
You think so?
I do. I think the Jackson Boys are too strong. They're going to hold out.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a very long match. But I somehow have this feeling of a draw occurring and the Jackson Boys retaining the title.
Right. I don't necessarily agree with that. One of the aspects that we're kind of overlooking here is the fact that in the rules of this match, it's elimination. So it's not like, it's going to be every team for themselves in this situation, so it's not like anyone's going to be getting in the way of someone else being eliminated. Whereas, in a normal situation, and this is hardly a normal situation, that,
right.
It's going to be you and your tag team partner in the match, depending upon who you are, to try and cover you to make sure that you guys don't lose the match.
True, but I could see some type of scenario unfold where the competitors help other competitors.
Right. Well, let's talk about those competitors. It is the Jackson Boys, the World Tag Team Champions of the MVWF, and here they are, have been embroiled in quite the furious feud with the Kingdom of Nightmares, and I wouldn't say they've traded the belts, but the Jacksonians here, or excuse me, that's their finishing move, the Jacksonian. They're really overwhelmed here. They've got a lot going on here. So you've got four teams. The Jackson Boys, Kyle Empire, and the Destroyer, Nick Jackson, have improved by leaps and bounds, and it was something that you highlighted during the Rumble, just how far they've come, correct?
Correct. But what we're not noticing, and what you've not mentioned to this point, is the phenomenal victory they had last week. Out of nowhere. Defeating Whiteside and Doyle.
Correct. And not only did they defeat the Victory Dojo, who were last year's Tag Team of the Year, but the circumstances of that match dictated that, Doyle and Whiteside were kind of penciled in to be the fourth team, and the stipulation said if they lost that match, they were out. Which leads us to who exactly it is that's going to replace them. And I don't think it takes a genius to figure out who that tag team might be, as it will be the League of Shadows, The Shadow King and MC Honky Lips challenging for the tag team titles. What do you think their chances are in this match?
Well, you got a guy who's got 100% in there, the Shadow King, and you never know, but he's, oh God, that just makes it a much more complicated match.
Yes, it does. And speaking of
Where's
complications...
Arn Patrick when you need him?
What's that?
Where's Arn Patrick when you need him?
Oh, he's on the card. Don't forget, don't worry about him.
I know, but I'm considering him to be my Shadow King Slayer.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about Arn Patrick, who eliminated the Shadow King and MC Honky Lips from the Royal Rumble, it illustrates that Arn Patrick is on the upswing, and I don't want to get off track here. But, again, you highlighted the fact that the Shadow King has 100 attribute points in this game, with the one vulnerability being his speed. And ultimately, we've learned that that's not the be-all end-all of everything, is it?
No, actually, I think he's lost more than he's won.
No, he's about 500 now. What he didn't win in the five-way at Kings of War, and he beat.
The Giant took him out.
He made AJ the Giant tap out in that tag team match. Lost to AJ the Giant at the last pay-per-view. Defeated Brandon Bones.
He defeated Rock Holly.
Oh, no, it was Rock Holly. Wait, who did he lose to? I fucking forgot. Live broadcast, folks, everyone. Shit. Anyway, I think he might be a little over 500 at this point.
All right.
But let's not overlook the last tag team. A throw-together team here. Well, they've teamed a couple of times. And it's the MVWF World's Heavyweight Champion, G-Man Ryan Crawford, teaming up with his on-again, off-again friendship, I guess, this partnership with AJ the Giant. And this tag team, probably the most controversial here, being put into this situation, seeing as though they're not necessarily contenders for the tag team titles, but they do have a lot of credit to spend, so I don't necessarily feel like they've been shoehorned. But that being said, here they are. What do you think their chances are in this tag match?
I think they have a very good shot, and I'll tell you why. You've got two of the hottest wrestlers in the MVWF solo right now, AJ the Giant and Ryan Crawford.
Right.
So if they can put it together, put their differences aside, and walk out tag team champions.
Well, I mean, like I said, it is such a non-traditional tag team title defense. And the percentages, which I know you're a big fan of the percentages and the stats and all of that stuff, Eddie Stank, that, everyone's got a 25% chance to win.
Yep.
And
there's real no momentum with anybody. I mean, the Jackson boys might have the best momentum out of any tag team.
Yep. Especially coming off their victory over Doyle and Whiteside.
Yeah. And I don't know, I can't remember what the King of Nightmare's done, but I don't believe they've done too much solo or tag team since their defeat. Right.
But they're highly motivated in this respect that they're definitely out for blood against the Jackson boys.
Well, there is some bad blood. So.
All right.
You gotta remember, Adrian Knight's got bad blood with AJ the Giant too.
Right.
Last year.
Okay, so let's move on down to the bottom of the card, and we're going to start with our opening match here tonight, featuring a big return to the MVWF. MVWF legend Little Bitch Ass returns in the opening match to face, well, the 0-2 Walker.
Wow, LBA gets Walker.
That's right. It's going to be size and strength against cunning, experience, and speed.
LBA, my favorite wrestler of all time for the MVWF.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's one of those guys that's hard to beat and generally has a habit of finding a way to win. And Walker, who finds himself in kind of a vulnerable position here, as he is starting off very, very cold, though he's shown some potential here and there. And he came up short in his match with Turbotron in fairly spectacular fashion. So we'll see what Walker brings to the scenario here. But I got to say, I favor Little Bitch Ass in this one, and that's just stats right there.
Yeah, I'd have to give the edge a Little Bitch Ass. I think I think Walker's still too green. Little bitch ass will find a way to win.
Right. Alrighty, and moving along to the next match, a huge one here, a tremendous rematch from the Kings of War pay-per-view a little over a month ago, and a little bit of irony to spice things up. Now, I know you don't know the entire card here, Eddie Stank here, so I'm going to surprise you with some of these. But we're having a big Fight Pit rematch between the Skinny Wolf and Awesome Ron Awesome. They're going to go 2 out of 3 falls, knockouts or submissions only. And this time, after everything that happened in the Royal Rumble, Skinny Wolf is decided to put his career on the line this time. If he loses, he's gone.
He has that much faith in him coming out victorious.
Well, I mean, I don't know why the Wolf would do that, because last time they did this, this was the kind of the resurgence of Ron Awesome. I mean, he got cut off at the pass, mind you. But last time it was Ron Awesome's career that was on the line.
Oh, hey, go big or go home, right?
That's right. Moving along now. A triple threat match that no one ever thought they would see. It is a triple threat riot match between Stan of the Spruce Street Butchers, Reggie from the Spruce Street Butchers, and Hector from the Spruce Street Butchers.
Hey, that's the best match ever. That is awesome.
Well, you know what? I mean, the Butchers have been finding themselves not on the card that much. They've had a few matches this year. Big 6-man against the classic team of Demolition, Axe, Smash, and Crush. They went to a 30-minute time limit draw there. They did defeat the Manchester Police Department in a couple of matches. But since then, they've been bumping their head on the glass ceiling. And I think, considering the way they've behaved in some of these matches, they've been taking out some of their frustrations on one another. And I got to say, I guess it's about time, because they have never fought each other in any capacity ever, and now they're all going to go one-on-one to settle their differences.
Could this be the end of the Spruce Street Butchers?
Possibly. We will see. And in a fatal 4-way, we've got basically what are the MVWF's mid-card here, going up against an MVWF legend, and we have Turbotron facing Arn Patrick, who's facing Kid Christian, who's facing the White Side.
Holy Snikey. Well, that's a mouthful, ain't it?
Yeah, it is. And keep in mind, you know, I mean, one of the more unique things going on right now is that Kid Christian still has in his back pocket the unique opportunity, as it was announced at the last pay-per-view when he won that triple threat ladder match against Jimmy Controversy and Local Talent.
Oh, hey, this is going to separate the men from the boys in this group.
Well, we shall see, you know, I mean, and I'll tell you what, I mean, if Kid Christian can pull this one off, I mean, who knows when we'll finally get the announcement on what that unique opportunity actually is.
Right.
And moving along, one of the big marquee matches here on the show tonight, it's going to be old school MVWF rules, because back in the day, back in the Nintendo 64 days, Eddie Stank, I know you weren't there for that. The MVWF's rules is that it was falls count anywhere, all the time. No disqualifications, no countouts, all of those things. And we're going to have a big rematch from the main event of the Kings of War pay-per-view, as it's an old-fashioned grudge match between Ryan Doyle and Enormous Genitals Kevin Welch.
I like it. Wow, that was good too.
Who do you think's going to come out on top of that one? Kevin Welch, of course, defeated Doyle for the MVWF Championship, putting on quite the inspired performance that night.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go give the edge to Doyle. Though I heard a rumor that Doyle's dinged up.
Mm-hmm.
So, can he push through it and continue? I don't know. I'm still going with Doyle.
It's hard. It's hard on paper to pick anyone other than Doyle in this scenario. But I tell you what, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be contrarian here, and I'm gonna go with Kevin Welch this time. If he can rung up another one of those inspired performances like he did when he won the championship, if he can do that, he will win this match here. Especially considering all the controversial rumors surrounding Doyle, like you highlighted there, that he might be carrying some injuries.
Well, make sure you're writing this all down there, Damien, so we can see how right or wrong we are in the end.
Right. Okay, and finally, in one of the biggest matches on the show here, with so much at stake, was announced by the Shadow King not too long ago that this was the scenario that Brandon Bones once again will be defending his ownership, well, not his ownership, but his control of the MVWF in a match at stake with his old rival, a man who appears to be a thrall of the Shadow King now, Rock Holly. And if Rock Holly wins, the Shadow King rules the MVWF.
Well,
call it.
As much as I don't want to do this, I'm going to go with Brandon Bones.
Really?
I feel like Brandon Bones seems to come up big, and whenever his ownership rights are called into question, he comes up big.
Right. Well,
So,
to be fair,
I have to go with him.
this would not be the first time that Rock Holly had facilitated this type of thing. Now, granted, it wasn't a match that Rock Holly did. It was some money back in the day that Rock Holly had given Brandon Bones. Bones had owed it to him, never paid it back. In fact, he still hasn't paid it back. Going back to 2003. But that being said, you know, he had lost some ownership or some control over things, and that Rock Holly had set up a series of guidelines back in the day that Brandon Bones was forced to follow. That's just some bullshit like Mountain Dew had to be served at every MVWF event. That was never followed. Rock Holly was pushed to the moon, which he was going to get anyway. But that being said, these two guys, when they go out there, a couple weeks back, they had tried to have a match, but the Shadow King interfered, causing Rock Holly to be disqualified, and then facilitated, though, that these stipulations be installed in this match this time around. It will be one-on-one, as the Shadow King and MC Honky Lips are barred from ringside.
So straight up.
Yep, it's going to be straight up. And, of course, one more time. Go ahead. You were saying?
Oh, I was saying I'm still going with Brandon Bones.
Okay. And like I said, our big main event, G-Man Ryan Crawford, the MVWF champion, teaming with AJ the Giant, challenging for the tag team championship along with the League of Shadows, MVWF Honky Lips, MC Honky Lips, the Shadow King, Adrian Knight, Mr. Nightmare, the Kingdom of Nightmares, facing the Jackson Boys, the World Tag Team Champions, in a first-time scenario in the MVWF, the biggest, I mean, literally the biggest main event in the history of the MVWF, a star-packed, I mean, there's a lot of star power in this match, man. I cannot stress that enough.
There is a lot.
Yeah.
That will be a very, very chaotic hour.
And certainly, and you know what? I mean, the MVWF Tag Team Championship has never been pushed in a way like this. I mean, it's main evented shows before, but it's never been, oh, how should I say it, like a bedrock foundation of the MVWF main event scene. And with companies like AEW promising to push tag teams and having the best tag team division in wrestling and stuff, the MVWF is also stepping up in that regard to try and, well, I guess, satisfy that particular sweet tooth that wrestling fans love tag team wrestling. And I think the MVWF tag division has been pretty underrated over the last 2 years since Phase 2 began. Doyle and Whiteside were very good tag team champions. They just happened to be very dominant last year.
Yeah, but you forget that, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Brandon Bowens and AJ the Giant held the titles for a while.
Yep.
And you also, I think, someone else held it. I just can't remember.
The Rock and Roll Express.
Oh, yeah, the Rock and Roll Express, the geriatrics of the MVWF.
Well, you got to give it to them, though, because while they've been on the peripheral of the MVWF now since Season 2 started, it was the Rock and Roll Express that really gave the tag team division the shot in the arm that it needed with a huge upset win, at Match Mania.
That's true. Well, you need upsets. You need a wild card.
Absolutely.
So they definitely provided a spark to your tag team division.
Well, all right, folks. That's basically the rundown on the show. It will be airing live in just a few hours on YouTube's. Any last words from you, Eddie Stank, before we sign off?
I think it's going to be an amazing show, and I'm looking forward to it.
All righty, folks. Well, for Eddie Stank, I am Damian Andrews, and we are signing off. We will see you at the 20th anniversary show with some of the biggest matches in our history. We'll see you then.